What do you think of when you think of the environment? Forests, birds, wetlands, animals? What about your backyard, the park down the street, a downtown city block, or a farmer's field? All these things are part of our environment. The environment is where you live and work. It's not only some faraway place that needs conserving like the rainforests or the polar ice caps. It's right here. It's the air you breathe every day, the water you drink, the soil where we grow our food. Whether you live in a big city or a small town, you are in your environment, and it needs conserving too. Imagine you had a chance to work in a career that really interests you and allows you to help protect and conserve your environment. Wouldn't that be a great job? Doing something you love and making a difference for the better? Well, you can. There are thousands of careers in the environmental sector, with new ones being created all the time. Why not take a look at just a few of the many choices? Business is about making sales and earning profits, right? It's people in suits working at desks, meeting in boardrooms, and making deals over lunch. But did you know that business has a massive effect on how our society works and in turn has a huge impact on the environment? From forests and oceans to your neighborhood, there are hundreds of business careers to explore that directly relate to the environment. Let's imagine you are a planner. This means you are responsible for developing plans for land use in urban, suburban, and rural areas, while taking into account its impact on the environment. Meaning you consider all existing natural resources on the land and how to best conserve them while allowing for development. It might be kind of neat to decide where a new neighborhood of houses will go, how much land the community park will have, or where the best place for the new public school is. Still can't picture it? You're working on a new community development. You bring together a team of professionals from various fields including biology, hydrogeology, landscaping, and engineering. With their help, you will design a plan that will include residential houses, parks, and shopping centers. You visit the site to take measurements and photograph features. After a lot of phone calls, meetings, and data analysis, you prepare a report that includes maps, graphics, and even a 3D rendering of the development. Soon you will make a presentation to the municipality, the building developers, and the contractors and get their feedback. Someday down the road, you will be able to drive through that community you helped develop and see the result of your idea. Looking for something more creative? How about being a sustainable architect? Architects design houses and buildings, right? That's pretty creative. But what if you also had to find new ways to use recyclable materials and make your structure super energy efficient? As a sustainable architect, you research new building technology from around the world and figure out ways to adapt the ideas for the Canadian climate and its building codes. You analyze data for the land where your structure will be built and decide what sustainable elements to use. Maybe you'll insulate the house using straw bales covered in stucco or use solar panels to produce most or all of the house's energy needs. What if you could figure out a way to make a house completely self-sufficient, meaning it could produce its own heat, electricity, and clean water? How would you feel to see a house you designed functioning in the environment in a more sustainable way? How about something a little bit more technical? As a water or wastewater treatment plant operator, your role is crucial to the functioning of any community. Where would the water from our flush toilets go? Or the clean water we drink come from? A wastewater treatment plant sanitizes our sewage until it is clean enough to be released into the river, while a water treatment plant tests and treats our drinking water and distributes it. What exactly are your responsibilities at the plants? At both facilities, you monitor and record data from the control room. You report any unusual trends or malfunctions to your supervisor. You maintain the equipment and make sure it is in good working condition. At the water treatment plant, you collect raw water, in-process, and finished water samples and perform laboratory tests. At the wastewater treatment plant, you perform a similar task with raw wastewater, in-process, and effluent samples. You also create accurate records of the tests you run. At the end of the day, you can see the results of your work by simply turning on a tap or walking past the river. More interested in working outdoors? Try out being a park warden at one of Canada's many provincial or national parks. All kinds of climates await you, from the Arctic to Canada's most southern point. Although you are responsible for some paperwork, such as completing reports, most of your work is done outside. You monitor the park, on foot or in a vehicle, and ensure the safety and protection of the land, the animals, and the visiting public. You test rainfall water for harmful elements, keep the park clean of litter, and properly dispose of burnt firewood and other unsafe objects. You also provide law enforcement by making sure all visitors follow the rules and respect the park and its inhabitants. You provide first aid or perform search and rescue if needed. Driving an ATV along the coast of a beach is a pretty great way to spend part of your day. As a park warden, your job is critical to the management of the ecosystem of the park to ensure there is little impact on the environment. These are just a few of the hundreds of business-related careers available in Canada that are working towards conserving and protecting our environment. Just take a look. What about communications? Communications is all about conveying a message to an audience. It's web pages, billboards, TV ads, radio jingles. But what about using communications to maintain our environment? To educate and inform. From marketing to science class, communications and the environment offer a world of career opportunities. How about an environmental communications officer? Depending on the size of the organization or company where you work, you could be one of the many employees in communications or the only one. You're responsible for acting as a spokesperson for your company, whether in person, through print, the web, or video. You have the opportunity to interact with the public, city officials, and more. You prepare press releases, newsletters, and other publications. You develop marketing strategies, meaning you come up with new and creative ways to promote your organization. You may produce educational or instructional videos for distribution. Every company, organization, and agency needs some way to educate and inform the public, which means they need a communications officer. What better way to use your creative and interpersonal skills than to promote an organization that is actively contributing to the conservation of the environment? Really want to teach? As an environmental educator, you are a teacher. You work with people of all ages to develop their environmental awareness. You can work in a classroom, out on a nature reserve, a zoo, or an aquarium. Let's say you work as an educator at a zoo. You prepare programs to suit a range of school-age children. You gather together visual aids, including real animal bones, fur, and prepare flashcards. When your group arrives, you discuss what a habitat is and why it is critical to the survival of animals. You take the kids on a guided tour of the zoo and introduce them to the many animals and tell them a little bit about each one. This is the best part of your job, engaging kids in an open conversation about the environment and the importance of conserving it. Or how about a park interpreter? You can work at one of Canada's many parks, historical sites, and conservation areas, helping visitors understand and appreciate the rich natural and cultural heritage of Canada. You make use of a variety of communications methods, such as guided tours or exhibits. For example, you might take visitors on a guided nature walk. Taking them along designated paths, you introduce them to the local plant and wildlife. You answer questions and encourage their interest. You take the time to facilitate their education and ensure their enjoyment. How about mixing education with a little thrill-seeking? Let's explore being an eco-tour guide. If you love the outdoors and meeting new people, then this may be the career for you. You are responsible for booking tours and maintaining the necessary equipment. You lead and teach tourists from all around the world. But what makes an eco-tour guide different from a regular guide? Simple. You help tourists appreciate animals and nature in new and exciting ways that have little effect on the environment, meaning you might use hiking boots, snowshoes, canoes, or kayaks. What kinds of eco-tours can you be a part of? How about cross-country skiing through Algonquin Park or kayaking along the coast of Salt Spring Island? Because your job is seasonal, you can work in a variety of places throughout the year, doing lots of different activities. What better way to spend your workday than zip-lining through the trees, knowing that you're contributing to their protection? Can you imagine the chance to work in a creative career that allows you to have a positive effect on your environment? Whether you like shooting video, taking photographs, interacting with people, or kayaking, there is a communication-based environmental career out there for you. Just take a look. Science is all about observation, identification, research, experimentation, and theories. It is directly related to our physical world, so it kind of makes sense that it is also directly related to our environment. In this field, you can choose from a huge variety of careers, from hands-on to something far more theoretical. Let's imagine you're a biologist, say a conservation biologist that conducts most of your work in the field. Your focus is on understanding and minimizing human impact on biodiversity. In this particular case, you are working towards conserving local wetland wildlife like frogs, ducks, and birds. One way you do this is by conducting a biological assessment of wetlands on private property. This way, you can work with the landowner to conserve the wetlands for the local wildlife. When land assessing, you use things like GPS to locate the area on a map. You take soil samples at various locations. You study and sometimes photograph local wildlife in the area. You examine the local plant life and take water samples. Your work means that the ducks, turtles, and other wetland animals will have another preserved habitat to call home. On the flip side, you can be a biologist who does most of your work in the lab. Let's say you're a marine biologist who works in a large aquarium. You focus on things like how marine life functions today, so you can predict how ecosystems will cope with such problems as global warming or overfishing. Much of your research involves conducting experiments on things like water samples from the many aquarium tanks where the fish live. You write papers on your research and collaborate with other scientists to figure out how to protect and conserve marine life. What about a field that affects everyone every day? The weather. As a climatologist, you look at past trends to predict future climates. You look at the long-term changes in climate and how it will affect energy usage, food production, and our own health. By analyzing and interpreting data collected, you can make predictions that can help save money, property, and even people's lives. You monitor things like pollution from traffic and industry, rainfall patterns, weather systems, and atmospheric patterns. Sometimes you might give interviews for newspapers, radio or television stations to discuss climate change and how it is affecting us. But what about the weather for the next few days? A meteorologist is responsible for bringing us that news. They analyze and interpret data obtained from meteorological stations to forecast the upcoming weather. How can we limit the pollution we create? How about alternative forms of energy? As an emerging energy researcher, you spend your days investigating and developing environmentally sound sources of power or fuel. This means finding ways to use sources like the sun, wind, water, and even our own waste products. As an emerging energy researcher, you perform research using scientific procedures, lab equipment, and computer technology. You collect, analyze, and interpret all kinds of data. You prepare reports and graphs to help people understand the benefits of these new sources of energy. Imagine developing a way to allow cars to run on hydrogen. All the car's exhaust would be is water. How can that not be a good thing? Looking for something very different? How about being an aquaculture support worker? What on earth does that mean? Simple. You participate in the operation of fish hatcheries or other aquatic farms. A private fish farm usually raises fish for food consumption, whereas a government hatchery cultures fish for stocking public water bodies, where fish stocks may be depleted from overfishing, loss of habitat, and pollution. Looking after thousands of fish at various stages of development, from eggs to yearlings, is an important and challenging job. Some parts of the year, you help collect eggs from the adult fish for fertilization, while at other times you help transfer fish to transport tanks so that they can be moved to a lake or river to be released. One day, you might be moving bags of recently delivered fish feed, while another, you might be removing waste from one of the many rearing tanks. On a regular basis, you feed the fish, monitor their progress, and report any irregularities. This is critical because many fish can be lost due to changes in conditions such as low oxygen levels or diseases. No day is typical, and every day you can see that your work is contributing to the conservation of fish in the aquatic environment. As in business and in communications, there are countless science-related careers out there to pique your interest. As you can see, the number of careers available in the environmental sector is vast and is continually growing. When you're deciding on what you want to do for the rest of your life, take a moment to really think about it. Look outside the norm and consider what it would be like to work in a career that you love. Not only because you enjoy what you're doing, but because you know that you are actually having a positive impact on your environment. It's easy. Just log on to our website at www.eco.ca.